How's it going, guys? I'm Jared and this is Avalanche Reviews. I've always had a soft spot for zombies. Ever since I saw George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, I've had a fascination. And when I picked up the first issue of The Walking Dead, I was hooked. And I've since grown to love the TV show as well. So when I heard there was going to be a video game based on the comic series, I was thrilled. But does it live up to its namesake? Let's find out in my review of The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead starts off with our main character Lee being carted off to jail. For what we don't quite know yet. You can see signs of a zombie outbreak all around you, but as you begin to piece things together, the game throws you a curveball.
This other time.
Once Lee regains consciousness, he finds Georgia a much worse place than he left it. After a tense escape, Lee tries to raise some help. While checking out a seemingly abandoned house, we're introduced to Clementine, a little girl whose parents were on vacation before the world turned to shit. Telltale Studios could have really dropped the ball here. The idea of taking care of a small child while trying to survive an apocalypse isn't exactly an attractive one. That being said, by the end of episode 1, you'll find yourself actually caring about Clementine. It doesn't feel like an escort mission because you actually worry about her safety. You don't look for food for her because the game makes you, you do it because she asked for it. And, well, who could say no to this?
I'm Chet.
From here, Lee and Clementine decide to stick together. But it's not all babysitting. Clementine can help Lee out in a pinch. Just having her around can get you out of a hairy situation or two.
We have kids with us.
The best and most believable part of this game's story is Lee. Being a convicted murderer, Lee tries to keep his legal history quiet, fearing it may affect his odds of being trusted by the remaining survivors. But this proves to be a hard secret to keep.
I don't know who you are or what you did, but you better become a better liar, fast.
Lee murdered a U.S. congressman who had been sleeping with his wife. So to those who kept up with the news in the months before, Lee's was a very familiar face.
You're a professor at Athens who killed a state senator who was sleeping with your wife.
The decision of who to tell and who not to tell becomes a hard one to make. The story in The Walking Dead feels very much like it came from the comics, focusing more on how people are surviving and not as much on what they're surviving against. If you do read the comics, this game supplies you with a compelling side story that retains the feel of its source material. Gameplay in The Walking Dead is easily compared to that of an adventure game like Still Life or Grey Matter, with a little less emphasis on inventory management. You're free to walk around your environment with ASWD, and your mouse controls a reticle that allows you to perform actions. If something in the environment can be interacted with, an indicator will appear when you mouse over it. Even lining up headshots or killing blows uses this mechanic. If you aren't a big fan of adventure games, don't worry. The Walking Dead is sort of like a hybrid, with just as much action as adventure. Dialogue, however, feels less like an adventure game and more like Mass Effect. There are several options when choosing what to say or do in The Walking Dead. But don't take too long when deciding your next move. Every choice or option has a time limit. This makes conversation feel more organic and realistic, since decisions must be made almost on impulse, and you can't go back and try another dialogue option. There are points in the game where you must make split-second decisions that have a profound effect on the rest of the story. These are one of the best parts of the game because there's no right or wrong choice. Each decision will have dire consequences, and it's up to you to determine which one's worth it. Controls, however, can be a little finicky, and sometimes you'll find when Lee hits an object it interrupts his walk animation. But you won't see this too often, and it does little to take you out of the atmosphere of the game. I would recommend The Walking Dead to adventure game fans and novices alike. The story, gameplay, and environment here are enough to win over anyone, regardless of gameplay preference.
No! No!
The Walking Dead has a very unique visual style. 3D models have hard edges and hand-drawn textures. This gives the game a very comic book feel. It looks very much like the first couple of issues of the comics before the art went black and white. A lot of people complained about the lackluster visuals, but I found myself caring more about what the characters were doing and less about how they looked doing it. That's not to say the game doesn't have its moments. There were a couple of times when the lighting and the graphic style synced up perfectly to create a very believable mood. Facial animations can also be very convincing. especially with Clementine. Part of why she's such a believable character is the attention to her facial expressions.
My dad gave it to me.
Sometimes character animations and transitions can be a little dodgy. I also came across a couple of odd graphical glitches when playing on the PC version, but I assume this won't plague console gamers. Graphical limitations aside, the gore in this game stands in a league of its own. I was amazed when I caved in the zombie's head and the 3D model of the head changed to represent the damage that I'd done. Unlike most games, weapons seem to pass right through enemies. In The Walking Dead, your attacks actually wound the zombies, and it's represented realistically instead of putting a wound-like texture over the model, like many modern games tend to do. The graphics in The Walking Dead aren't going to wow you very often. They will, however, create a believable world for the story to take place in.
If you don't make it through this, you know that I think you're a great guy.
I had a great time with this one, guys. With its $5 price tag, it's a no-brainer. Now, its graphics won't be selling in video cards anytime soon, but if you get into zombies or the Walking Dead comics series, you have no excuses but to play it. That's all I have for right now, but I've got more to come, so please make sure to comment and subscribe. And until then, I'm Jared.
Knock this guy out. Happily.
Jesus!
Oh, man.
And this has been Avalanche Reviews. Thanks for watching, guys. Hey, Telltale, get the rights to this game now. I'll wait. While I'm waiting, feel free to click on one of these guys to check out my other show, Trash Classics. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button. It really helps. I think I'm going to be waiting for a while.